Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I want to know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you and me and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we are talking about Black love and friendship. Black love and friendship. My very special guest, I actually met at the 2022 SHE Women's Wellness Conference, which took place about a month or two ago. And primarily at TCC, at Tallahassee Community College. It was actually a hybrid. It was both in person and virtual. And so my guest was virtual and I was in person, but I did get to hear a little bit of her presentation and have seen her on Instagram. And so I said, I got to have you on the show. And so I'm so excited and delighted to have her with us tonight. But before I introduce her and bring her on, I want to hear from you. Where y'all at tonight? Let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on Roku TV, which is my network. And so I want to hear from you. This is an interactive live. This is a safe space too, where we can come together and express ourselves. And so we are all about Black and Brown mental health and wellness. And July is Minority or BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. So we've been focusing on that anyway since the middle of November of last year. So just more of the same, and so glad to do it. So we want to encourage you to get your checkup from the neck up and connect with a clinician of color. All right, so I see you now. Nasheed Ewan in St. Pete, thanks for being here. And Cousin Raymond in Virginia, thank you for being here. Always good to see the brethren in the house. All right, well, while others are slowly trickling in, and you all please tag people, let them know they need to be here because we're going to have a great time tonight. So this is interactive and we do expect to hear from you. All right, so I am going to introduce my very special guest, Miss Melissa Comeau. Melissa has 15 years of experience working with couples, individuals, and groups. Melissa has a private practice specializing in relationship concerns. She has experience working in college counseling centers, focusing on work with young adults, where one of the top concerns are relationship issues. Who couldn't use some help with that, right? So Melissa started her career working in community mental health and nonprofit agencies, including domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy agencies, where she received training in identifying unhealthy and toxic dynamics in relationships. She has a passion working with individuals and couples with diverse backgrounds and believes in the importance of multiculturalism. Melissa is active in increasing diversity awareness as the diversity chair for the Central Florida Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, where she helps put together panel discussions such as Black mental health, Asian mental health, and cross-cultural couples counseling. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology Master's of Science degree, Educational Specialist degree in Mental Health Counseling at Florida State University. Go Knowles. Melissa holds licenses and certifications as a licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and national certified counselor. Melissa is also a qualified supervisor. So help me welcome Melissa Comeau.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. I know I said it to you backstage in the prep, but I feel that way dearly. So thank you for having
Oh,
me.
nice. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, so glad to see you and hear from you and glad that you are here. So, Melissa, tell the people, who is Melissa Como? Not what you do, but who is Melissa Como? Let them know.
Nicole, you got me. I was ready for my professional, answer to that. So I guess I should, go ahead and let the guard down, right? I'm here with family, so I'm gonna share. So Melissa Como, I am of Haitian descent, so that's one of my identifiers. I am from South Florida. I am a wife and a mother. I am also a business owner, and I am a person of service and passion to help individuals of color and couples basically strengthen their relationships. It's a passion for me because the people in my life are dear to me. So I want people to experience the same thing. And so I know that relationships can be difficult in life. And so just want to make it easy for people. So although it's my profession, it's also a personal passion of mine as well. So that's me.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, tell us, how did you even get involved down this counseling road? Like, what prompted you? What was
Yeah.
your, I guess, entry point or area of interest?
Yes. So I had to stop. I see some Haitian flags in the building. So I
Yes,
had
Marjorie is here. Hey,
All right.
Marjorie.
I appreciate you, Marjorie. Thank you. Yeah, so funny story. So in my previous life, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. So I actually was in a pre-law magnet high school. I was a pre-law in the beginning of college, so to speak. And then you know how they make you take those general like courses when you first start school, first start
Mhm.
college. And one of those courses was psychology intro, whatever that was at the time. And so I remember distinctly that I would have to wake up at least 3 times a week at 8 a.m. for a
Oh,
15-minute class. I lived off campus and I made it there every time, probably the first person in the building at that point. And
mhm.
I noticed that although I still appreciated law and I had interest in it, there was a passion behind it that I got from the psychology that I didn't necessarily feel like I experienced with the law kind of background, so to speak. I wouldn't change my trajectory though, because I feel like working because I also was a legal secretary for a few years through college. So I feel like it's knowing about the ethics and stuff when it comes to being a clinician. I feel like that part kind of helped. But just being exposed to different things. And I always tell students and people I talk to, like, try different stuff. You never know. You might find something that you didn't think you'd be interested in that you ended up being interested in just by exposure and being open to it. So yeah, that 8 a.m. class got me. Surprisingly, I was just eager to be there.
Look at there. That story always intrigues me, how people uh come to know this journey or this path of counseling and therapy. So the 8 a.m. class did it, huh?
Yeah, it got me. It was like because it felt like the things that you and I can like reflect back at the time. I don't think I do this, but
Right.
reflecting back, I feel like when it comes to the legal, part of it, although there's room for attorneys and people and judges to make interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when it comes to because I also worked for a divorce attorney at the time, I should have added that piece in there. And
Mm.
so when I was kind of toggling between the two, I remember regardless of like whatever the outcome was, let's say for the divorce or custody or whatever, people's feelings didn't necessarily get better because they still had to deal with the hurt and the
Mhm.
turmoil of whatever happened in their family.
Right.
And so at the time, I thought I was just interested in, oh, this is a cooler topic, kind of thing. But when I thought back, I was like, oh, because I felt like there was a piece missing. I guess I didn't, 18 to 20 years old, I wasn't really putting it together at the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it felt like, okay, this kind of feels like the part that was missing when people either got or didn't get what they wanted from the outcomes in family law. So,
Gotcha.
and I remember thinking back to the attorney I used to work for and how much counseling she did, right? Because attorneys come up counselors too, but
Mhm.
really a lot of her work at least was like, helping people through their emotions to make decisions about the
Mm.
legal part. So,
Right.
and of course, once they did, she was able to execute that in court for them. But it was a process to just get there. And so again, at the time, I just thought it was like, oh, this is interesting. But as I thought back, I was like, oh, okay, because it felt like even just the front desk person or helping with paperwork, and they would kind of come in with their emotions and stuff like that. I would, do my best to support them as an 18 to 20-year-old.
Right.
But at the same time, it just felt like, you would think people would feel better even when they got the outcomes that they wanted. And I'm saying that part because obviously you would think that would be the case, but they still were sad and upset and whatever. And they're sad to deal with the aftermath of the enforcement of whatever the outcome was. And so I think in that experience, it kind of felt like the psychology or the human behavior and emotions part filled in the blank for me for that. And so just, kind of helped me want to move forward in that direction versus the other.
Nice. Yeah. It's interesting actually, because maybe you don't think about those different components, or, that maybe people are going through, anguish and whatnot with the divorce attorney, and maybe some other things kind of bubble up for them while they are going through those types of proceedings. So, seem like that'd be a good place for you to maybe have your business cards.
Right. Good point. For sure. Marketing, right?
Yes, marketing. So we are talking Black love and friendship, but before we do, I have to read my disclaimer because I have a clinician on, and I don't want you all to be confusing this for counseling and therapy. So all topics, past, present, and future, on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only. They are not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or an answer to any personal issues related to the topics being discussed before, during, or after the program. So there, I said it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Black love and friendship. Now, why is this a mental health issue? And why are we calling it Black love?
Yes. Well, I'm happy you asked. So for some of you that may or may not know, so my practice focuses on relationship issues. So romantic, mostly couples, romantic, and individuals come in talking about romantic, like marriage and stuff like that too. And so when I was looking at my passion area and what I wanted to focus on in my practice, I knew this again, but like when you start like looking at everything together, it starts to be more clear about how much our relationships impact our mental health, right? Obviously, I saw that in domestic violence, clearly, right? I saw that in college settings because, as young adults are emerging, they're figuring out who they are as adults, their relationships, like how to handle, heartbreak, all these different things. And so in those experiences, and then kind of leading into kind of developing my own practice, it made me realize, like, not only am I that's my passion area, I love relationship topics, and I, got my marriage and family certification after, and all these different things, just my interest. But as I looked at my work, I was like, yeah, like people need people, like, and they need people that are supportive. And even in the research, we're connecting it back to mental health, of course. A lack of sense of belonging is one of the factors or loneliness even is one of the factors to depression, and even, thoughts of harming yourself. Right. And so if you think about how deep it can go for some people, wanting to think preventatively, right? Like, how can we basically foster relationships that are healthy, that are enjoyable, that are satisfying, that are supportive. And it's not to confuse it to say that people in our lives are responsible for our mental health. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there's a connection there, right? And so we don't want to like overlook the connection or minimize it either. That like, oh, you're just going through a little, people are hurting sometimes. And I think being able to highlight that is important. And then also to counteract that, when we are experiencing joy, in our relationships, how that is a protective factor to mental health issues, right? So the research even talks about those things as well. But again, it's like, in the field for 15 years, like looking back to everything, like the past maybe 5 years, I started to connect more and more when I went back and got my certification for marriage and family. I was like, yeah, they go together. They go together.
They absolutely do. So I know we say Black love and friendship, but I think maybe we should start with friendship.
Yeah.
And I think that because, I've often heard people talk about, as adults, it's difficult to make friends. Sometimes, a lot of friends come from maybe childhood or even college, or some, I guess, from some workplaces or maybe places of worship, that sort of thing. But, you and I actually even talked about how, and I'm kind of all over the place right now because this is just coming to my mind. I want to say it before I forget it. How in maybe Black and brown communities, you know, I know I witnessed growing up adults who had friends that their children, they were almost as close as a blood brother or sister. And so their children referred to them as auntie this person or uncle that person,
Mhm.
right? And so there was a closeness that maybe even sometimes their blood relative didn't have with them. But that's some the phenomenon that I kind of, when I was thinking about this topic, I thought about those types of relationships. So,
Yeah.
we use the word friend real loosely, I think sometimes. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm talking about a lot of things, but help me
No,
out
I
here.
got you. No, I got you. Because what I'm thinking of is, Black love and friendship is a topic, right? And so when we think about our communities as people of color, how we're collectivist people, right? We are people of connection, of group, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. And, of course, different ethnicities within because we're not a monolith, like not all Black people are the same.
Right.
But the similarities that we do have is that that connection and community is very important. And so when you talk about the play cousin, the play auntie, kind of thing, that comes from the sense of like just more community. And so if we feel that dearly to people in our lives, then we feel like they're family, so we treat them like family. And sometimes there's no difference in that for us. And not everyone necessarily practices that. I know for me, being Haitian, there's people in our family too that you may not know later on as well, that they're, oh, okay, there, you may call them auntie or their cousin, but they or maybe, somebody that they grew up with your mom or whatever the case is, like you were saying. I know for myself, I have a couple of close friends I call sisters. And my son, he's only 3, and I'm already training him to call them, auntie.
Mhm.
Tati,
Mhm.
because Tati is the Creole or the Haitian way.
Yes.
So yeah, so it is something I think in terms of that, because I think it's friendship, but it's also in terms of cultural kind of perspective, in terms of how we see and utilize friendship in our families, and how that's sometimes friends are an extension of our families as well. So I definitely get you in that. And I think that's important because it just allows for our support systems to be bigger, right? Like we were talking about mental health. So bigger your support system, healthy support, of course, the better,
Indeed, indeed. So I'm pause here and get our viewers involved. Do you all have any non-blood sisters, brothers, aunties, uncles out there? Or are you that to someone? Maybe you serve as auntie or uncle or, sister, brother to somebody that is not a biological or a blood relative. If you do, just give me a thumbs up or a wave or church finger or something like that in the comments. Let us know. Let us know.
for sure.
Yeah. So, while they're doing that, so when I think about friendship, um, there are definitely some things that, again, I think sometimes on the flip side of that, the term is used loosely, right? And we may be saying that someone is friend, but I don't know if they necessarily are showing friendship qualities, right?
Yeah, and that's important, right? So now we're tiptoeing into the unhealthy dynamics of relationship, including friendship.
Mhm.
And I think it's one of those things where there's individual preference, right? As far as individually how people choose to call somebody a friend or not. There's cultural implications, there's family dynamics, there's all these different things.
Mhm.
But what I'm hearing you say is, that label carries weight, right? There's a value to that statement. And I think even as collectivist culture or our Black culture or brown culture, even though we do have that sense of like community, so to speak,
Mhm.
there's also parts of our community or parts of ourselves that is cautious as well, right? So that's the part that you're speaking on. And I think it's something important to consider, because if you are someone who uses the word friend, or I don't know nowadays people use sis or bro, right? In terms of like they're your
Mhm.
friend, but they also like a family feel to the relationship. And that's why you
Right.
refer to them in that way. It
Mhm.
is important to be cautious because in that point you're being open and vulnerable to that person. You're being open and vulnerable to them in your home, maybe in your life, to your children, to your spouse, right? So you want to be able to hopefully feel like it's a relationship that is worthy of that ultimately, right? You don't want to have to second guess your friends or have to wonder. And then if something does happen, like a conflict or issue, the hope is that you can resolve it in a healthy way to preserve the friendship, you know, but we know that doesn't always happen. So that's the tough part.
Right. So, you know, with friendship, I think one of the things that probably we don't talk about, you know, formally is, you know, what our core values and beliefs are. And so sometimes those can be challenged in a way if the person who we are befriending maybe doesn't share those same core values and beliefs.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Really, really good point. So I actually talked about that a lot at the Women's Wellness Conference for SHE this year. And you know, when I think back to like some of the talking points I was having at that conference, at the workshop I did, I used real life examples. So things like, you know, the elections and, you know, Black Lives Matter and the pandemic decisions and how people choose to live their life, and like how these different things, or even being locked down with people, right? So all these different life events, how they started to show what people's core values were, right? Because before we were able to be distracted by other things, work, you know, day-to-day stuff, just, you know, getting by, basically. But then when these large life events happen in our nation and in our world, where, you know, sometimes, well, some people can avoid it, I guess, but it was harder and harder to avoid, you know, ultimately. And so I was talking about that at the workshop, and people, you know, were like nodding their head, like, yeah. And hearing things like on people's social media, even people I talk to say things like, oh, you know, the elections kind of ruined my friendship, or COVID ruined my friendship, or my family relationship or something. And it made me think like, that's not really what messed it up. It was that you probably didn't know your friend, or even if it's a relative in that case, that deeply to know what really mattered to them. So your core values is just what really matters to you. You know what I mean? And so people don't always share that. And so when it comes to a head, it may feel like you have to choose, I guess, for some people. So that's a hard thing.
It is. So that causes me to, again, I want to get the viewers involved. Do you believe that you can be friends with somebody whose core values are different from yours?
Yes, please answer that question, because that's actually the exact question I asked at the workshop, you know, getting people's opinions. So I would love to hear what the audience thinks about that.
So if they're of a different political party than you, or maybe you believe in a higher power and they do not, or, you know.
And we're all people, or not we're all, but this is a show for people of color. And so,
Right.
and we're using the word political, but there's other words we can use. I'll let you fill in the blank. Right. Social opinions about people of our community from other people. How do we take that? Like, how do we handle it?
Right.
Oh, Sophia, she's actually a relative of mine. Hi.
Okay. Hey, Sophia. She said no, she can't do it. All right. Haitian Speed said yes, but difficult. Okay. June E said yes. Okay. So can you be friends? And I'm talking about true friends, not like fair weather friends, not like you over there, my friend. Hey, I mean friends that can come to your house, friend. Like friend.
Friend. I like that. Because, you know, we need to say it twice. The friend makes it real.
Yes, friend. Can you be friend with somebody who has a different core beliefs, or core beliefs are not the same as yours? All right, Javon said that is my biggest challenge. I don't think you can be true friends, but an associate. Okay, that's
so a boundary sounds like he's put in there.
Yeah, associate, acquaintance. Okay. Yes, I do believe.
Shelly. That's another one of my friend family. Hey, Shelly.
Okay. All right.
So I'll say, is it okay for me to jump in now? Because
absolutely.
So this is kind of what I talked about at the conference as well. And so I do think it's possible. The question is it probable, right? In terms of how true the friendship can be. Because what happens with core values is the person, because we think about core values as just the individual person, which is, it's just true. It starts with that person.
Right.
But then when that person starts making decisions off their core values, that then affects your life, right? So it can be, you know, my core value that like I don't want my trash can, to be outside. I want everybody's trash can on the block, to be inside. But let's say someone can't easily or readily get up, maybe have, impairments, so to speak, to get up and go get their trash can exactly at the same time. Now that affects their life. And if you go then report it or make an issue of it, not knowing their circumstances fully, but because your core value is you want that trash can to be inside at 8:00 on Tuesdays, right? Then, and we don't figure out how, or know how that affects the other people in your community, so to speak, then that's where I think it may be kind of difficult to be a friend with that person, right? The hope is you have a conversation and tell them, but sometimes people don't move.
Right.
Core values,
Right. You said it ends becoming more than one thing. Yeah, I think it can be kind of contentious.
Yeah.
You could be close friends, but remain close even after the friends' values change. Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those things that's probably not a easy answer. I think it's probably relative depending on the situation, and also depending on how much their core values are impacting you, right? I think if it's just within themselves and like, okay, I'll be your friend all day. But if it starts encroaching on my, life or whatever, then I think that's when it's like, I feel like now it's becoming personal,
Indeed. So there are levels. All right, let me see. Solomon had a comment. Let's see. He said, when our grandparents came up, they literally lived the term, it takes a village. As time progressed, we still use the term in some places, but don't live it like our elders did. Interesting concept. Solomon, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think part of that is also, too, that we couldn't go everywhere. Like, we had to stay in certain places. So we had to live together, right?
Good point.
Now we have a lot more liberty, if you will, to live in other communities. And so I think that also caused us to really be more village minded, if you will.
Yeah. And I also want to play a little bit to that too, like a little challenge to that. I agree in terms of kind of, or understand where the perspective is coming from. I will also say that I think when we think about it takes a village, at least this is my thought, and you guys can chime in. But when I think about it takes a village, I think about basic needs, like so like food, shelter, safety, which is primal. Like we need that. But what I will say, I think is different in terms of like the next generation, so to speak, is more awareness in terms of like relationship, emotion, mental health. And I think that part, I think is more than when it comes to a village. I think people are checking on each other more when it comes to that side of things, because there's just more understanding around it versus before, I think, or not before, but even in some cultures still now, the concept of mental health and emotions and how you feel in your relationships and your quality of your relationships are not necessarily like the top of the chain, So, so I do understand that, being sparse and being moved in different places and people's priorities are different. I think technology is a big part of that as well. But I do think there's things that have moved forward that I still see there's villages in that. It's just, looks different probably.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that the pandemic has fostered that as well?
Yes. In terms of the challenges, is that what you're asking?
Or the check-ins even?
Oh yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, I feel like hopefully not so much now, but I feel like the first year was so polarizing before. But I think now people are kind of, I guess, adjusting to the new normal. And even down to the core values, I think people are trying to find a way more like in the middle, like towards each other a little bit. So I do think that I think people are realizing how much it impacted them, mentally and emotionally. And so I think there's more room for empathy. I think in the beginning, there was just so much simultaneous fear and anxiety, is like every man for themselves kind of thing. And so now it's like, oh, okay, like this not going nowhere. So and those of us that were blessed enough to still be here, right? Because people haven't, that people are thinking of like the gratitude and like those type of things, I think have drawn people together in that sense. I think we're past the mental health crisis around the initial shock. We still have it going on, but the initial shock. And so now I think people are creating more room for the togetherness piece and wanting to get together even in person, like all the same things that you're hearing now.
Indeed.
For sure. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. I'm going to pause real quick because we're about halfway through and just let those of you who are just joining us know that you are here with me and Melissa Comeau. She is the founder, owner of Heartfelt Counseling Center in Central Florida, and she is a licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, national certified counselor, and all of those great and wonderful things. So we are talking Black love and friendship tonight. And kind of been just talking about the different aspects of friendship and whatnot. So is there anything else that you think is a poignant point, I guess, or a point
Yeah.
that we need to talk about or cover as it relates to friendship before we move on to Black love?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was thinking about the core values piece.
Mhm.
And one thing I did also talk about at the workshop was for those of us that choose, because it's a
Mhm.
choice, to stay friends with those who have different core values. I think there is ability for us to be challenged and stretched in a good way, right? In terms of like giving us a different perspective that maybe we hadn't had otherwise. And so I think it's more on the two or more people to kind of sit down and have that conversation and understand how decisions that they're making off their core values may or may not affect the other person. And with those type of conversations, I think that's where it can help the possibility of it happening more. But if we don't have those conversations and we're not open to other people's perspective and we're not open to how our decisions off our core values affect other people, then essentially that's where the separation, I think, happens. I don't think it's just because you have the core values. I think it's like what you do with it and how you it doesn't mean to necessarily change them like on the spot, but I think understanding like how it affects people and decisions that you make, I think that's the part that's the thing to remember. But I think if you're open to it, it definitely can help you be open and stretch yourself to think differently, which is not a bad thing, So just wanted to kind of add that piece.
Okay. Very good. Now, I should have probably started off with this question, but this just kind of came to me. I want to hear from the viewers. I want to know, what do you all believe is the purpose of friendship?
Great question.
What is the purpose of friendship?
Yeah. Why are we friends?
Yeah, why be friends?
Why are we friends?
Why be friends? I love music, right? So I don't know if you've noticed, Melissa, but when I post in my story
I love your music choices.
the show, I normally, I actually just you in Instagram, you can like put in music, you just put in a word. And so of course you put in friends, you got Houdini, friends, right? How many of us have them? And then you got TLC, what about your friends? You got Brandy, so a whole bunch of friend songs out there, right? And then I found something by the Carters. I had never heard this song before by B and Hova, but they had a whole song about friends, right? And that was just very intriguing to me. So I was thinking, like, what are friends for? That's what friends are for.
Yeah.
Tell us in the comments. I want to
Yes,
know
please.
what is friendship for? What do you believe is for? What's the benefit, or what's the purpose? What's the purpose of friendship?
Yes. I
Nobody
love that
nobody has
question.
probably asked that question before, but
No, I love that question. I love anything when it comes to like meaning and purpose. I'm there. 'Cause, like, I don't like
Mhm.
doing things that don't make sense. So I'm like, why are we here? Why are we doing this?
Right, 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 right. Okay, so we got support, we got building, networking, loving, supporting, accountability, reflection. All right. Love, belonging, companionship, growth. Love it. It's so much more to it. Okay. We got friendship helps us change and grow. Yes. To be there for good times and bad times. Let's see. Listen, that's what friends are
Mhm.
for.
I love the answers.
Relatability and
That's my bestie.
support.
Hey,
Hey, bestie. All right. Connection. Okay. Lynette said, like Dr. B said, I am that I am because of my connections. Friends are an
bestie.
extension of the village to meet the fulfillment of companionship. Okay.
I love that, Lynette. I love it.
Yes, yes, yes. Javon, I feel friendships are important because the world is hard. You need those people that can uplift each other, be a
Mhm.
sounding board, but help enjoy life. Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Shelda, friendships provide a sense of belonging. They help you celebrate good times and provide support through bad times. Yes. Solomon, as the saying goes, having that brother from another or a sister type of relationship. Many can talk to their friends before family. So
Yeah.
friends are like a prototype of blood family.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Family by
Nice.
choice. Yes.
Yes.
Play cousins and aunties we were talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. Support. Love it. All right.
Yeah.
Terrell, the chief is in the house. The chief is one of my brothers, my
Oh,
blood brothers.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Friends will celebrate and encourage you in the good times. They will also show up and hold your hand when everything is falling apart. They hold you accountable without judgment. Yes.
Yeah.
Love all of that. Help give different perspectives. Yes.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. Purpose of friendship is exactly what it says. Friends, learning the benefits of being there for one another, for each other, rather not friends with benefits. And learning how to be
Clarification.
loyal. Thank you for that disclaimer, Ozzy. Uh, let's see. Learning how to be loyal and supportive. Now, if it grows deeper, let it not be on sexuality, but intimacy. Look, that's a great segue to our next topic, which is Black love, love, accountability, and belonging. Thank you, Patricia.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. So, Black love. Black love, Black love. Start us out. What is it? What's that?
That's a great question. So where do I start? Because there's so many thoughts when I hear that term because I'm so excited about it. But one of the things that I want to make sure I did with my practice is to serve the people that I serve best, right? To reach out to the people that I serve best. And it happens to be people of color, women of color. And it's one of those things where I think there's a lot of messages, maybe some myths, some narratives around that. Just the term I feel like is so loaded, like Black love, right? People have a specific thing they think about when they think of it. And so I was sitting around with my hubby, kind of thinking about different ideas for social media and to reach out to the people that I think I'll serve best. And obviously I focus on relationships. So one of my values is to show love in my practice. And so being able to kind of make those connections, it came to me and I was like, I wonder, because for me, I was like, I feel like, the term Black love means more than romantic. And so I just set out on this like IG tour every couple of months of like having these conversations, different aspects of Black love. And what I noticed, which was really groundbreaking for me and super meaningful, like it just kind of confirmed all the reasons why I wanted to do this, that other people other than myself felt the same way. And so although there's a narrative that's going on social media or all types of media platforms and stuff in terms of Black love being like relationship goals with like, let's say, Jay-Z and Beyonce or, dare I say, Will and Jada, all of these things that people think about when they think of Black love seem to be kind of like narrow when you see the term out there. But then as I had more conversations with people, meaningful conversations with people on my platform, I was noticing that I wasn't the only person that was thinking this way. And I was like, well, this is a problem. Like, we need to push this message out, right? And so for me, the meaning of it and confirms with the people that I've spoken with is that Black love is community. Black love is two or more people who identify as being Black and supporting and loving each other, romantic or not romantic, who share the same struggle. And even more importantly, want to uplift each other in their community. Like, to me, that's like the end piece. Like, that has to be there. Like, yes, we can love each other because it's fun, kind of thing. And we need it to survive on some levels, like to just to be here and go through life. But besides just you, like, what does that mean for your community? And so even though, I have the luxury or I should say not the luxury, but the opportunity and the honor to share virtual space with clients and have them share their deepest kind of worries and sadness about their relationships. My view, because I'm a systemic thinker, doesn't stay in that space. And so that's where the idea just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I decided to kind of talk about it with other people than my husband. And then I found that I wasn't the only person thinking this way. So it inspired me to have the conversation more. So when you reached out to me and I was able to talk on a wellness conference as well, and any place I can just kind of like bring in the concept, I'm excited to talk about it, because I think we, more than myself, is thinking and feeling this way, but it's not talked about in the mainstream. Let's just say it that way. And so the more that we can do that, I think it'll help our community, basically.
Absolutely. So, I think with us, a lot of times there are things that are unspoken, right? And so again, this is part of why we have conversations with Nicole to, have this exchange and have these safe spaces where people can express themselves and we can learn from one another and communicate with one another. I too think that Black love is important, and the terminology that the adding the Black to it, I think is meaningful because of our lived experience, especially here in America, right? And some of the things that we have to contend with on a daily. And I think us giving space to ourselves, making space for ourselves to love on each other, and share a understanding, because of the skin that we're in, is why we, are receiving, some of the treatment that we receive. And, that is a unique experience.
Very unique. Yeah. And I think what I like to kind of share with people with that unique experience in terms of, how it's more than the romantic piece, although the romantic piece is in there, but the shared experience through all levels, right? So some of the things I talked about on my platform so far have been like Black self-love. I talked about that for Juneteenth. And how if you think about like concentric circles, which is like circles within circles, it starts with you, right? So your self-love. And for some people, there's a spiritual component for that too. So that's the most inner parts. And then after that, the circle around that could be a romantic relationship if you are in one, if you choose to be in one. And after that, there's your children, if you have children, if you choose to have children, right? And then your family of origin, and then your neighborhood and your city, and maybe your job, right? And so all these different spaces that kind of go outward from starting with yourself. And how can we, let's just take Black self-love, for example, like how can we work through that within our own stuff? Because as you were saying, Nicole, the messaging that we get and how we're treated in the country and in the world even sometimes kind of can challenge like how we feel and how we think about ourselves. And then that affects our relationship outside of ourselves with other people and so on and so forth. So no matter where you start on that circle, because you can bounce around, right? How you can make a ripple effect from one point to the other, right? Even through like Black businesses, for example, which, people may not necessarily think about as like Black love, but it is Black love. Like Black love is support. Somebody says we said support throughout the friendship piece. And so I like to kind of give people that kind of, hope I described it, the visual of what I'm thinking about when I think of it, because it broadens the perspective and it includes everything, in there. Nothing is missing within that concept. And it's important for us to kind of like, again, go back to the purpose, like, why am I friends with that person? Why am I with this person? Why did I choose to be a parent? Like all these different things that extend our community within the Black community, which I think is really important to be able to know that and to foster that and to make it a healthy one for us.
Absolutely. So, I think about, when I think about love and intimate relationships, friendship to me is the basis or the foundation of that, right? And so, again, that's kind of why I wanted to start out with friendship and then move on to the love piece. I think, sometimes we get, especially in more like romantic relationships, sometimes we can get confused. And confused maybe infatuation or the newness of relationships with love. And so I wanted to just kind of maybe flush that out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, most of my I want to say probably, let's see if I'm thinking about all my clients. I want to say all of them have probably 100% of my clients, which is what my goal is, to kind of talk through them with them about their romantic relationships. And then, of course, whatever other relationships they want to talk about. But one of the things that, you're speaking on in terms of the being confused part. So I also think in an emotion lens. So I think systemically, culturally, and then emotion. So with emotion, the reason why, which actually even say this, that's actually part of my tagline, that relationships can feel complicated. Let me help you make it simple, right? That's like kind of like because of that. I just thought of it. And so that part in terms of it feeling confusing or feeling complicated actually comes from the emotion piece, right? Because we're normally afraid, right, of being hurt. And
Right.
so whether we get the signs that something may not be healthy for us, let's say, it's that fear of whatever that outcome may or may not be, depending on our decision. So like if you are faced with a relationship that, you know, if it weren't you and it was your friend going through it, you can easily see that it's not what it should be.
You know what? Hold on. You got to pause right there because listen, you on the outside looking in and you see so clearly, but you in the midst of whatever, if you were in the same scenario that you were telling your friend about, you blind as a bat, can't see it at all.
Cannot can't see it, and may even sometimes choose not to see it, right, because of that fear. And so that's why one of the components of I have a framework that I work through with my clients that talk about boundaries, authentic emotions, self-compassion, and empathy. And self-compassion is one of those things because that's you with you, right? That's the part that we're saying. And so that's actually one of the questions I ask them to work through over between sessions is like, how would you treat yourself if you were your own friend? Right. And so that helps people kind of get out of that, like it being them, because as we just said, when it's not you, you can see it clearly, you know, but when you're in that emotion state, the logic piece gets a little bit tampered with, right? And so we have to be able to move through them to be able to see the things that we can't otherwise see. And so that's why. So when we say complicated or confusing, it's not a logical thing. It's a emotional piece. And so sometimes we need to have our friends or family respectfully and lovingly share those things. Sometimes we have to be our own best friend. Sometimes we have to step out of ourselves, like not literally, but mentally and emotionally, and say, okay, if I were looking at myself right now, what would I tell myself? You know, and that takes practice because it's kind of hard to do because we're so in it that is hard to do. But once we can practice it over time and do that, you can implement it in different situations.
That's a whole word right there, Melissa. I'm telling you, being your own best friend and taking you out of it. Listen, that's a whole word. All right. Solomon has a comment. He said 2 different expectations coming from the man and woman will always bring about confusion. Women will commit to a relationship before men will. Men won't commit out of fear. Booty call, baggage. He hasn't let go. So with so-called lady friends.
You know what? I appreciate Solomon just keeping it real with us. Like he just giving us all the examples.
Always keeps it real, Solomon.
Okay,
I love it. I love it.
Yes. I do want to speak a little bit to that in terms of just the polarizing of men and women. I think, you know, his comment is coming from something, right? And it's coming from obviously the socialization of what men and women are taught to think. But the same example of like being your own best friend or taking yourself out of it would also include in the gender role or include in socialization. Like if you had a silhouette of a person, you don't know if it's a man or a woman, and they're doing an action, like what would you think about that action? Right. So like if you see, you know, a guy half dressed, let's say, and then a woman half dressed, let's say she has a top on, but it's not fully covered, but you don't know what's what, you're going to be like, oh, okay, you're going to have an opinion about it. But if you don't tell them what the gender is, they're like, oh, it just depends on the situation. Are they at the beach? Are they, you know, it's like all these different examples. But same thing with like infidelity. Like if you have a silhouette not knowing what the gender is, then you're going to have probably the general opinion, but like once you apply the gender to it, then that's where the socialization starts imprinting in our opinion. And so I would challenge the audience to step out of knowing whatever that action is. If it were a man or a woman, how would you judge it?
You know, that's a very good point, I think, because definitely there are some judgments that are placed on gender, you know, certain things that man can do, and there's a pat on the back and woman can do it. She's, you know, all kinds of names, right? And vice versa. So I think that's you know, we have to kind of filter that, right?
But I think, like to Solomon's point, if you know these things, so you know better, you do better, right? So if you see these things happen in your community or it's happening within your own personal life, then you don't have to necessarily just go with it. You know, you can find different ways to kind of see if it can move the needle somewhere in the positive direction.
Right. Lynette had a point. She said, regarding Black love, the connection in the culture of of mutual respect by acknowledging another Black person when we come into contact. A
Mm-hmm.
hello, a wave, a head nod, a smile. That's an expression of Black love
I
in my
love
life.
it.
Yes, I make it a point to let my brothers and sisters know I see you.
Yeah, I love
Yes,
it.
I absolutely agree, Lynette. Thank you for bringing up that point. Yeah. So, and I'd like to explore that a little more. I mean, what do you all think is an expression of Black love?
Yeah, that's a good
In the
question.
comments, let us know. What do you think?
Mhm.
Lynette has already kind of got the ball rolling by telling us a nod. I know we can, do that little
Yeah.
head nod, like bro man from the fifth floor.
Yeah, right. This nonverbal, kind of connection there for
Exactly,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think in the comments? Let us know. What are some expressions of Black love you think? A
Mhm.
peace sign. You mentioned, Melissa, us referring to each other as bruh and sis,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. For sure. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, you can think about like probably a way to think about what are our expressions is if again you change the person. It's like if
Hmm.
you change it to a person that's not of your color, and they did the things that you did or we do, then you might be like, oh, okay, that's a little different.
Hmm.
That's how you know. Oh, this show is an expression of Black love.
Patience, speed. Thank you. Sending you a virtual hug. That's sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it's all around us. And maybe we might even take it for granted.
Yeah,
But
I
you
agree.
know,
I agree.
hmm
I think
hmm
that's a good
hmm
point. I think because we're, so used to being together in some form or fashion. That's a good point in terms of the taking it for granted part, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. But I think also, I know for me, the pandemic has made me appreciate, being in the presence of
Mhm.
my brothers and my sisters more.
Yeah,
Right?
dapping
Yes,
up,
yes.
Shell.
Listen, we got some handshakes for you, okay?
I know all types.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yes, Marjorie say, I am quick to give compliments.
yes, that's a good point.
Yes, we are beautiful. So I always acknowledge a smile, a hairstyle. I love us. Yes.
Yeah, the hair. Now the hair is a good one. If you get a compliment on your hair, there's gonna be some type of connection probably after that.
Listen, speaking of which, that's a good segue. So I got my summer braids, my birthday braids.
Birthday braids.
Listen,
Looks good.
yes,
Nice and
listen,
fresh.
I'm ready. Okay.
I love
Black
it.
girl in her braids. Listen, nothing can
Yes.
stop me.
Just get up and go. Go take on the
Listen,
world.
okay. Melanin popping.
Take on
Anyway,
the
all
world.
right. Yes, Maya, for me, a smile goes a long way. Love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Acknowledging one's success,
Yeah.
know how they are doing well, raising babies, etc. Exactly. Yes, Solomon, being able to set our differences aside naturally and regardless of the fallout. Way too often we give other ethnicities more energy than we do our own people. We do this more out of spite. Yes, well, hopefully we will stop doing that, Solomon.
Mhm.
All right, Ozzy, keeping pure love and humility on the forefront with no mixture of competition.
Yeah.
Hmm. Expecting each other's values and gifts and utilizing them in the real world together. I love it. All right. Terrell, Black love is the way we show up on social media to acknowledge one another in times of triumph or
Mhm.
hold them other folks accountable. Hold
Hold
them,
them.
hold them accountable when they come at one of us incorrectly. We sure do that, don't we?
Mhm.
Oh, look at y'all in the birthday braid. All
They
right,
feel
Bria.
them. They feel them, Nicole.
Yes.
I love it.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, all right. Well, we got black love
Mm.
examples all around us. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate that.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
really do. So, anything else that you want to highlight as it relates to black love and friendship?
Yeah, I guess the only piece I would add is I just want to challenge everyone again tonight to start thinking about ways that you can either continue or show more of Black love, right?
Mm, okay.
Whether that's to yourself, whether that's to a loved one, a friend. We talk about friends tonight, a
Mhm.
colleague. It's like just going that extra mile. One of the things that came up on my platform, I was talking to another colleague, Dr. Micah Johnson. One thing we talked about was grace, like
Mm.
showing each other grace, like,
Yes.
not being so hard on each other sometimes, even though we do, I think, automatically have Black love within us, within our community. We support each other.
Mhm.
Like everything everyone said is true, right? And at the same time, I think there are, and I think maybe Solomon was making some references to that, but I think there's times when we probably can show a little more grace, and we don't for whatever reason, whether that's your emotions, whether that's, your core values, whether that's just your opinion about someone should handle something, whatever that may be. I think it's going a little bit further than you normally would, right? To show that Black love to whoever that person is, right? Maybe giving somebody an apology like 5 minutes earlier than you were planning to, whatever that is. I think that's important because for me, yes, I want to continue to serve my clients and my, 1 or 2-to-1, I see couples too, virtual spaces. But the more I kind of talk about this, the more I want to do outreaches and conversations and platforms and stuff to kind of like have people think about the Black love term broader, like we said tonight, Nicole, but also to do something with that information. Like that's, I was implement it in some type of way. And so right now what I've come up with is to show a little more grace to one another, whatever it looks like for you or to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself.
Yeah, I agree with the grace and grace to yourself, because I think sometimes we can, because of the messaging, because of, what we receive from the world, the media, sometimes, it can present messages around us being less than or not good enough or what have you. And I think we can internalize that, right?
Yeah, and we do. That's called racial trauma. That's the thing.
Mhm.
And so these are why I'm so happy you said that, because that's exactly what it is. It's, there may be people that might ask, like, why are we even having this conversation? That's that why question. And it's because everything you said earlier in the conversation, Nicole, and now, and how we're being treated, the racial trauma or the impact that we have, from the community. And sometimes because we internalize it, we sometimes can do that to each other, right? And so that's where the whole grace part comes in. Like a quick example I'll give is like a Black business, so to speak. And so I know my husband have these conversations all the time where like we would give the service providers, not just restaurants, but just any place, like give them a little extra chance, you know what I mean? Like let them know, give them loving feedback and say, hey, next time, I prefer if you do it this way, that way, rather than just writing people off in our community because they don't have it a particular way, because we know the reason why sometimes things aren't necessarily running as smoothly as some other communities are. And so I think if we know that information, that's where an example, I guess, if people want a little homework and want to know where to start, I guess that is one place to start, right? Is not to say to be okay with bad service or, bad products or whatever the case is. But at the same time, is there a way that you can give the feedback so that person can get better, the business can get better? And will you give an opportunity to get better? Will you show back up once they get better? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the piece that is a good example. And that goes in that circles, all the circles we talked about earlier, from ourselves all the way out to our community. And that's a way to kind of show Black love as well. So that's an example, of grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. I think that we do that in pockets, but I think we definitely need to be more intentional about that.
I love that in pockets, yeah, because it's there, right? It's just got to be bigger.
And not just for the barbecue rib man or the turkey leg man or the
we know we could cook. You know what I mean? We know we could cook. We're talking about the tax professionals, the attorneys, the plumber, like everybody that we would typically go to other people for. Give our people a chance sometimes if you have it.
All of that, right? We can cook. We can do hair. We can cut hair. All of that, but we need to spread it out across sectors, across professions, across services, across products. Seek them out. Be more intentional. All right. Chick-fil-A runs off of privilege. Lord, I can't with you, E. Where's he? E, come get him, please. Come get him. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Who is that? Who is this person? Ryan Morgan trying to be friends. Ryan making friends on the live. Okay.
Find a Black love, I guess. We turned into a matchmaking.
No.
I'm just kidding.
All Oh,
goodness.
goodness. Well, this has been great. I will allow you to give any final comments, uh, Melissa. I know you said the homework would be for us to be, I guess, more intentional about giving grace and supporting Black business. But anything else that you wish to share before we close out?
No, I'm just honored to be here, and I would love to connect with people. I know you're gonna share my information at some point, but no, I
Okay.
feel like I got everything I want to say out, and I'm glad everyone was here participating. I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Wonderful. Well, I do have your information here. Hold on. Let me see if I can get it on up here. All right, there we go. So on Instagram, Heartfelt Counseling Center, and that is also your phone number, right?
Yes, for sure. So I do IG lives or live events on Instagram every couple months, and Black
Mhm.
Love has been the theme for the year at this point. I've done a couple other topics, but that's just been people have been wanting that more, so that's fine with me because I love to talk about it. So if you all love this topic, then come on over, connect with me on Instagram. I'll be doing much more of this. If you're interested in the services, I recommend you call the phone number because Instagram is not secure, healthcare secure.
Right.
So the phone number is though. So if you want services or inquire about services for someone else, I do see individuals and couples for relationship issues. Or if you want to just follow me on Instagram just to kind of connect with me that way, feel free to do that as well.
Indeed. And you are taking new clients?
Yes, yes. And I'm virtual, so I know there's people across the state that's in the building. So
Yeah.
so I can see you anywhere in Florida.
You can do telehealth.
Yep, telehealth. Yes. And it
All
is
right.
effective.
All right. I just said awesome show on Black Love tonight. Learn to be friends, though. It is an acquired skill set.
Yes,
Indeed it
yes,
is.
yes.
Indeed it is. Well, we got a lot of people chiming in, and this was a great show. So
Thank
it
you.
looks like it was very helpful, which is awesome, and that's what we want to do. We want to keep this conversation going, so please share this with someone. Tag them so they can watch the replay, and subscribe to the Conversations with Nicole YouTube. Subscribing and supporting, and we need all the support we can get. And also, you can follow me on IG at Conversations with Nicole. So, again, Melissa, I want to thank you so very, very much for being my special guest tonight. I really appreciate you. And I'm gonna have to get you on Singles Mingle. That's my singles show that I do.
Oh, I know you had another show. You got so much stuff going
I know, right?
on.
So that's me and Nick and Roz every other Tuesday, and we'll actually be on next week talking about the 5 love languages. So
Oh, I'm with it. I'm with it.
okay,
Anything
well,
relationships, call me.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you all again for your comments, your engagement tonight. That made this show a whole lot of fun. And let's practice Black love and friendship out in these streets. All right.
Mhm.
All right. Y'all take care. And next week, let's see. Next week I have Dr. Ken Fowler on Monday. I can't remember the topic right now. And I have Dr. Terry Parks out of Atlanta. We are, again, it's Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and I know his topic is why Black folks need counseling. So
Perfect.
it should be interesting. It should
Yeah.
be interesting. Yes. All right, good people. We will see y'all next time. Have a good night.